Sales Wisdom Podcast with Curtis Rupp, CEO at Outbound Funnel. We're going to talk sales, sales coaching, sales automation, consulting, and sales enablement, which are definitely my top 10 sales subjects. Curtis, welcome to the pod. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and Outbound Funnel?
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great. So I'm Curtis Ropp. I'm the CEO of Outbound Funnel. We've been around for almost 6 years. We're 5.5 now. This actually came out of a different company that we were trying to get off the ground, which was automating the SDR. So we were a little early to that problem, or at least solution. And out of that, we recognized that there were some best practices that could be coached, and we started working with partners like Outreach and Sales Loft and Drift and Gong and some of the greatest in our space, and making sure that their implementations are correct, making sure that their systems are running at an optimal level, and building an automation.
Let's talk about your early career. You started in wine and spirits. You did 4 years there, and after that you went into a CPG company. So tell us about the hustle of starting a career in sales.
Yeah, I mean, I was terrible at it, to be honest. I remember very, very clearly how bad I was, because I was 100% commission. So I had a very basic route, if you will, as a training route. And luckily I was young and I had very low expenses, and I was able to do this experiment. And I would go into these establishments and try to present what was on our menu for wines, and try to look at it from, I need to sell this stuff, and made no money for about 3 months. And then finally I was kind of at the point where I was ready to move on to a new career. And I just went in and started having more conversations with these owners, and having more of a, hey, what is this? Why is this not moving? Can we work together to find a solution? And very quickly ended up growing that territory to a marquee territory in the state, and moved on to different challenges in the sales world.
And then you decided to found your own agency in 2018. So that would be a good 10 years later. Why did you decide to found your own company, and how did you adapt to the change?
I think it was a natural progression. When you're starting sales, you are self-motivated and you have to really own your own business. So as I continued to get more and more comfortable in those roles, running a company and running that structure for others was just a natural transition for us. I think that the opportunity was there, that wasn't yet a place that I was going to make any money unless I built it myself. So while that problem existed, there really wasn't a lot of thought about budget behind sales engagement tools. It was kind of hopefully we can set this up and then forget it. It's just an automation tool, versus understanding that this is actually a platform, and it needs to be maintained, and it needs to advance, and you need to be able to get more ROI. So that's really where it came out of. I was unemployable, so I employed myself.
Interesting. Who do you serve nowadays? What do your packages look like, and what do you do exactly for your clients?
Yeah, so we serve really anything that's mid-market enterprise that are invested in sales operational tools. So from Drift to Gainsight is really the place we play. Most of our clients are doing optimizations. So say they've had the tools for a few years, they're now went through a couple of different internal changes, and they're looking at their systems differently. And we want to cross the budget, and we want to be able to roll in from just an SDR team using these tools to an AE team or a customer success team. So they'll bring us on to make those tough decisions and build out that strategy.
Right. What do you charge your clients, and how much clients do you run on per roster typically?
Yeah, so we'll run multiple clients a quarter, and ranges really starting around 25K for a full year build out of just an audit of what the systems and tools are doing and things like that, and then we custom scope the work from there.
Right. How do you run your own outbound campaigns, or do you run outbound yourself?
Yeah, so we're probably not the best example of eating our own dog food, because we've just been fortunate that our partners are really great to us, and we get a lot of referral business. So um, it's been much more of an inbound based company than an outbound based, even though we focus on outbound strategy.
Right. And what do you deploy for your clients most of the time? For example, I use Apollo, I go multi-touch. Most of the time, highly personalized. I use AI tools such as clay.com. What do you use on your side?
Oh gosh, I mean, from a we look at it from a full revenues perspective. So it's not just like a multi-touch or just the content strategy. It's really looking at is how does that customer land on your site, and then are you engaging with conversational intelligence like an intercom or a drift, and then is that tool connected to a platform that's like outreach or sales loft, and how much of automation can we build into that tech stack that'll get a customer from just landing on your site or being directed by an outgoing email and they click on some kind of link. Can we get them to an appointment on the calendar without having to have a human involvement? And then from there, how do we look at renewals? How are we going through customer success? Are you using these tools and platforms of multi-touch, personalized understanding and education tools to get a customer on a renewal and know that you get an 80% chance of closing that customer for another year or another 2 years? So it's much more broad than just a platform strategy.
Right. And what tools do you use to calculate where the customer comes from?
Where the customer comes from, I mean, just from like onto the website.
Yeah. Like where do they come from? What are their interactions once they're in the CRM? So what tools do you use for that?
Oh, I mean, CRM tools were pretty much Salesforce, HubSpot, Dynamics. That's where we specialize in. Then from there, we're looking at metrics from drift tools that, hey, this is what they landed on, this is what they clicked on, this is where they fell off, and running reports on that. Anything that's sales outbound activities is going to go through a sales loft or an outreach. Gongs come on with Engage that's rolling out this quarter. That will be really, really interesting for us to continue to push on what capabilities that they bring out. And then if you're looking at any kind of conversational intelligence on the back end of like, how do these interactions track once we've had a conversation with them? Where do they go from there? Using a chorus or a gong is basically best practices at this point.
Right. And do you implement these systems for them, or is it pure consulting?
Oh no, we'll do an implementation. Yeah, if you bought something that new, or say you're doing an expansion into another team, we'll do not only the setup, but we'll also do the training. And we focus globally.
Right. And what problems do you often see in your clients? Why do they come and see you?
Oh man, varied reasons. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just trying to get more value out of a sunk cost on these platforms. And these are not necessarily small investments. And when they're touching money generating clients and money generating positions, they have a pretty big microscope on them. So I think what happens is you get to a point where, okay, we've reached a plateau in our sales. Why? Is it the team? Is it our tech stack's not correct? Why aren't we getting more ROI out of these tools? Is generally when it sparks our conversations.
Right. What the size of your clients? I guess it's over 200 employees, right?
Yeah, I mean, we will do engagements that are smaller, but that's generally because it's a partner fed opportunity. Like, we'll say, hey, we'll take on this professional service engagement for you. So you guys don't have to do it, or you don't have the capacity. But if we're looking at a net new client that we would be targeting, it's 50 seats or higher on these platforms.
Because yeah, first startup, 80% chance of closing as a revenue first. They don't have that data, and most of the time the product is not complete enough. The product market fit's not even there for that much of an accurate renewal. So do you still take startups as clients, or?
Only from an implementation standpoint. I mean, if you've got if you've got the need for it and we can map that out, then we will. But realistically, yes, you have to be mature enough in a sense of, hey, we have a product market fit. We have an understanding of how our system works, how our sales systems works, how our marketing engine works. We need to optimize. That's where we would come in.
Renewals, what percentage is product, what percentage is sales, and what percentage is service in terms of what justifies a renewal?
Ooh, I'd say it's a third each, realistically. And they're not weighed in the exact same weight or way. I think the product needs to be able to stand alone as a service, right? Like that has to be able to do its job. It can't be frustrating. It has to be able to be managed correctly. From a service standpoint, it needs to be set up correctly. That's generally what we see. The biggest issue is that someone set this up 5 years ago and they didn't set it up correctly. And now they're on the fence of a renewal. So we'll go in from a partner angle and fix what's wrong. If they would have just had that set up correctly from the get-go, I don't think they would have had a question on a renewal there. So that's big. And then from a sales standpoint and like an actual person engagement, you can wreck any deal by not being attentive and not hearing the customer and not understanding what their objective is. I mean, we've seen customers go in the wrong direction off of a platform over less than $50 just because they couldn't come to a term. It was a silly misalignment.
Right. How do you go with upsells and downsells? You know, like if you see that, oh, they don't fully want to renew at this price, do you downsell them to a lower package or give them a deal? And how do you go with, let's say that they have a 9.5 on 10 NPS? How do you go with upsell in that case?
Yeah, I think upsells are just a little bit easier. You can just highlight what the maturity model is and say, hey, here's where we're at, here's where we're going. This is what it's going to look like. This is what it takes to build there. When it comes to a downsell, I've always taken the philosophy that a happy customer is a long-term customer. And realistically, we make more money with a long-term customer. So if there's a reason why they're going down, let's talk about it. Is this a pause in, focus? Is this a pause because of budget constraint? Is this because the market that you guys are in has adjusted somehow? And let's realign what tools you're using correctly. And then when it's time to go back up, they're much more open to working with us in the future. So a happy customer is one that generally will make you more money in the long run.
And what do you do with client feedback? Is all feedback good feedback? How do you digest that and potentially add product feature?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to worry about product feature. We really would more focus on additional services or additional focuses in our services. But yes, all feedback is welcomed, but it's not necessarily always constructive.
Needs to be filtered. I want to talk about your other roles in the last couple of years. Outbound Works, you got an exit out of that. You were part of the founding team, right?
Yes, that was the SDR automation team, and I believe that was acquired by Concert.
Yeah. So what did you do after that exit? I think you took that money that you got from the exit and you started investing it as an LP in Prephase Ventures, right?
Oh yeah, I mean that was not a lucrative exit. It just was an exit, right? Like there was still value in the tool. But yeah, I got it into the investment stuff just as I matured into knowledge of this space. So, really the biggest thing I needed to understand was investing in things I know, and that GTM space or preface invest in high tech companies that are rapid growth. That's the businesses that I've been in the last decade. So it was easy for me to see the value in it.
Right. And what about GTM fund? I guess these are the funds from Outbound Funnel that are invested into some startups that you view as promising, right?
No, so these are personal investments. So GTM fund, I'm just an LP, but then that fund will go out and make investments just alongside, all the greats. So They're just a open fund. The thing that's unique with GTM fund is we're also a community. So, I can actually have access to other LPs. We can start up conversations and strategies that they may need inside their portfolio. So when GTM fund is looking for an LP, they're generally looking for operators that also possess knowledge. So that way their investments and those companies can come to them and say, hey, I need to figure out how to set up my, sales engagement tools. Outbound Funnel knows how to do that. Let's talk to Curtis. So that's why that goes into that.
And what's the size of check that you need to cut to be part of GTM fund?
It's always changing. I don't know what they're at now.
Like 50K minimum?
I don't know. You have to ask Scott.
All right. As an advisor, how does that role differ from what you do as at Outbound Funnel? I guess it's pure consulting, but do you get asked by GTM Fund to advise some startups? And how are these startups different from your clients at Outbound Funnel?
Yeah, they would be much earlier in their journey, is what I'm seeing. So I'll get, outreach probably once a quarter about, hey, we've got this space that we're going to go into. And I spent some time in the manufacturing space. So maybe I have some knowledge about just how sales work inside of that I can share. They're not generally the technical side of systems and tools. Most of the advisement I have is operational from a company standpoint or sales focused.
Right. Talking about communities, you're a member of Pavilion as well. So overlap with GTM Fund there. What's the benefit of being a member of a community, and how do you contribute to these communities yourself?
Yeah, Pavilion's been wonderful, to be honest. It's gotten a lot of similar operators together. And I think that, COVID was interesting in just terms of the isolation and then some of the exodus out of metro areas. So you just kind of lost some of the connection of similar minded people. Pavilion's done a really good job of also pairing similar sized company leaders with themselves, and we can have an open dialogue. It's good to be able to find peers to have just conversations around things that maybe someone inside your company doesn't understand because they're not in that position or they haven't held that position. In terms of how I've contributed, we've done multiple different events. I try to be a resource to anybody that also has those kind of questions that I've had. And just next week, I'm going to dinner with 2 Pavilion members just to talk about updates and how we're doing in this market and what it looks like in the next 3 months, next 6 months, next year. And it's been great.
Of it, are these convos mostly verbal online, or are there also group chats, and which one do you prefer?
Yeah, I'm probably the worst at group chat, to be honest. Managing just a team that I have now, that one Slack line is enough for me. So trying to jump over to multiple Slack lines, I'm pretty poor at. But I do try to attend anything that's in person that I am knowing that I'm going to be there. So whether I'm in New York for work or something like that, we're doing some side stuff with their GTM summit in Nashville in October. And then just phone calls and text messages that are direct.
How was COVID for you? Were there any struggles, and how did you deal with it emotionally?
Oh gosh, emotionally, yeah, I would say a lot of struggles. We had a brand new baby. The world had stopped. That was an interesting isolation period. And then from a work standpoint, all of our work stopped for a short time. And then we were very lucky that what happened was people and companies started to actually adopt the digital sales world. And what came with that was actually a bit of a rush of work. So, emotionally, it was the lowest of lows. And then we got to start to see how to build this to be a different business and a more predictable business. And it worked out great.
So how did you deal with it? How did you keep your sanity, and how did you went up from there?
Oh, I think having my family that was with me was really good. I had a very young boy. So, the reality is after I was done with these struggles, I got to go be a hero someplace else. And I think that emotionally does help reset the game. And then a lot of walks, a lot of just exercise. I'm fairly self-disciplined. So just getting into a new routine that allowed for that was good. And yeah, I mean, I always found ways to be of service outside of work, and that kept me pretty sane.
What are you seeing ahead for your company? I mean, inflation and these uncertain economic times. Are you seeing that? What are you seeing ahead?
Yeah, I think it's going to affect us in terms of overall potential growth. I think we're still such a young business that we're going to continue to see growth that's beneficial. This has been the first time that I've seen major purchases come with the requirement of services being attached. So that's been great from a are we growing? Do we have a potential to grow standpoint? And then you have more players in our field. So Gong has just gotten into some of these things with Engage. You've got advancements in AI that's going to come down the pipe with these tools. Drift's already taken up some. Sales Loft has Rhythm now. Outreach has a couple of different things up their sleeve. That's going to keep us very busy and keep teams very, eager to get more out of the tool.
Love it. Where can people find out more about you, Curtis?
Outboundfunnel.com. Come say hello.
And Curtis Rupp with 2P on LinkedIn.